Work Rules, Insights from Inside Google That Will Transform How You Live and Lead by Laszlo Bock. Picture this. You're a kid growing up in a place where bananas don't exist, where children are taught to spy on their own parents, where the government feeds you nothing but lies, and your friends can vanish overnight for asking too many questions. Sounds like something out of a dystopian thriller, right? But this was real life for young Laszlo Bock, born in communist Romania in 1972. His family lived under a dictatorship where fear was the currency and information was the ultimate threat. Eventually they fled, chasing the one thing they'd been denied their entire lives: freedom. The freedom to think, to explore, to discover the truth. Fast forward a few decades. That same boy is now standing at the helm of one of the most ambitious companies on the planet, one with a mission to organize all the world's information and make it universally accessible. A company that was, in every possible way, the complete opposite of the world he'd escaped. That company was Google, and Laszlo Bock became its head of people operations, the person responsible for finding, nurturing, and keeping Google's most valuable asset, its people. What he discovered and helped create there became the foundation for one of the most game-changing business books in recent memory, Work Rules. This isn't your typical corporate playbook. It's a blueprint wrapped in a deeply human story about how one company decided to make a radical bet that if you give people freedom, they'll blow your mind with what they can do. Over the next little while, we're going to peek behind the curtain of a place that gets over 2 million job applications a year, a place that's 25 times harder to get into than Harvard. We'll dive into the surprising principles Google used to build what some call the world's first self-replicating talent machine. And here's what I want you to know. By the time we're done, you'll see that creating an amazing workplace has almost nothing to do with the flashy perks like free lunch and nap pods. It has everything to do with a specific philosophy about people, one you can start using tomorrow, whether you're running a company, managing a small team, or just trying to navigate your own career. These are the rules that can transform not just how we work, but how we live and lead. Every legendary story needs a great origin tale. Rome had Romulus and Remus raised by a wolf. Superman had baby Kal-El escaping an exploding planet. And Google? Well, Google had 2 students on a Stanford campus tour, but the real story, the one that actually matters, starts way earlier. It begins in the hearts and histories of its founders, Larry Page and Sergey Brin. Larry's grandfather was an auto worker back in the rough-and-tumble early days of the American car industry. He carried a weapon to work, a heavy iron pipe, just to protect himself from the company goons during labor strikes. That story of workers literally having to defend themselves from their employers left a mark on Larry. He made a promise to himself. If he ever built a company, it would feel like a family, not a war zone. Sergey's family defected from the Soviet Union to escape relentless oppression and anti-Semitism under communist rule. He grew up with rebellion in his bones, a deep need to question everything and push back against any form of control. For him, freedom wasn't some abstract concept. It was oxygen. Both Larry and Sergey were also Montessori kids. If you know anything about Montessori schools, they're all about freedom. Kids are encouraged to follow their curiosity, question everything, and create on their own terms. So you've got these 2 young guys, one shaped by stories of brutal labor conflict, the other by the fight for political freedom. Both raised in an educational system that valued independence above everything else. Is it really any surprise that when they started a company, it looked nothing like your typical corporation? Their goal wasn't just to build a killer search engine. It was to create a place where work actually meant something, where people were free to chase their passions, and where families were genuinely supported. As Larry once put it, if you're changing the world, you're working on important things. You're excited to get up in the morning. This leads us to the first, and maybe most crucial, rule of all. You have to choose to be a founder. Now, this doesn't mean you need to launch a startup. It's more about attitude. A founder sees a problem and fixes it. A founder cares about the culture around them, their team, their family, their community. They take ownership. An employee just does their job. A machine does its job. But a founder, an owner, does whatever needs doing to make the whole thing successful. Laszlo argues that this choice, to think like a founder, is the single most important decision you can make in your career. And if you choose to be a founder, your first mission is building a culture. There's this famous business saying, often credited to management guru Peter Drucker, "Culture eats strategy for breakfast." It's pretty simple. It doesn't matter how brilliant your plan is. If your people don't buy in, if the environment is toxic, if they don't trust each other or their leaders, you're toast. When people picture Google's culture, they imagine the colorful slides, beanbag chairs, and gourmet cafeterias. But those are just the visible stuff, the artifacts. The real culture, the foundation holding up the entire company, rests on three invisible but incredibly powerful pillars: mission, transparency, and voice. First up, a mission that matters. Google's mission is to organize the world's information and make it universally accessible and useful. Notice what's missing. No mention of profit margins, market dominance, or shareholder returns. It's a moral goal, not just a business one. It gives work deeper meaning. After all, people fight revolutions for ideas, not quarterly earnings reports. This kind of mission is impossible to fully achieve. There will always be more information to organize, which means it provides endless fuel for motivation and innovation. It's what allowed Google to expand from simply ranking web pages to creating things like Google Street View, aiming to create a historical record of the entire world at street level. A profit-focused mission would never have led there. The lesson here runs deep. We all want our work to matter. Psychologist Amy Rusnifsky found that people view their work in one of three ways: as a job, a career, or a calling. A job is just something you have to do. A career is a ladder to climb. But a calling? That's a source of fulfillment, a way to contribute something meaningful to the world. And here's the beautiful part. You can find a calling in almost any work. It's all about perspective. Laszlo shares the story of a fish slicer in New York City who used to guide climbers on Mount Everest. He said both jobs were similar because they were both about helping people. That's the power of connecting your work to a bigger mission. As a leader, your job is helping people see that connection. The simplest way? Let them meet the people they're helping. One study found that when university fundraisers spent just 5 minutes meeting a scholarship recipient, their weekly fundraising shot up by over 400%. Why? Because their work suddenly had a human face. The second pillar is transparency. At Google, the default setting is open. A brand new software engineer gets access to almost all the company's code on day one. Product roadmaps, launch plans, team goals, visible to everyone. Every week, at a company-wide meeting called TGIF, Larry and Sergey stand on stage and field questions from any employee about any topic. And these aren't softball questions. They're tough, probing challenges about everything from product strategy to ethics. This level of openness terrifies most companies, but it's built on one core belief. If you trust people, they'll be trustworthy. Transparency kills office politics. It prevents teams from duplicating each other's work, and it gives everyone the context they need to make smarter decisions. It treats people like owners, not cogs in a machine. The third pillar is voice. This means giving employees real say in how the company runs. Many of Google's most popular people practices didn't come from executive mandates. They came from employees. For example, a Googler pointed out that the tax code unfairly required same-sex couples to pay income tax on health benefits for their partners, while heterosexual married couples didn't. The head of benefits agreed it wasn't fair and created a policy to provide extra payments covering that tax, making Google one of the first major companies to do so. Another example is bureaucracy busters. When Googlers felt the company was getting slow and weighed down, the CFO didn't launch a bunch of top-down initiatives. He asked employees to identify their biggest frustrations and help fix them. Giving people a voice isn't just about being nice. It leads to better decisions and a more effective organization. So you've got these three pillars: a meaningful mission, radical transparency, and genuine commitment to voice. This is the foundation of a high-freedom environment. But to build on that foundation, you need the right people. And this brings us to what Laszlo calls the single most important activity in any organization: hiring. Most of us think we're pretty good at reading people. We pride ourselves on being solid judges of character. We meet someone, and within minutes, we get a gut feeling about them. The problem? Our gut is usually way off. Mountains of research show our first impressions are loaded with unconscious biases. We tend to like people who remind us of ourselves. We spend the rest of the interview not really assessing the candidate, but hunting for evidence that confirms our snap judgment. Psychologists call this confirmation bias. It means most interviews are basically useless. Equally worthless are those brain teaser questions some companies love, like, how many golf balls fit inside a 747? These questions predict job performance about as well as a coin flip. They mostly just make the interviewer feel clever. So if our instincts mislead us and brain teasers are garbage, how do you actually find great people? Google's approach is a masterclass in turning hiring from an art into a science, built on a few core principles. First, hire slowly. Finding truly exceptional people takes time. A bad hire is toxic and can drag down an entire team. As one Google executive puts it, "I'd rather lose an entire incoming class of engineering graduates than one exceptional technologist." So they're willing to keep positions open until they find exactly the right person. Second, only hire people who are better than you. Simple but powerful rule. Every person you bring on should be better than you in some meaningful way. More creative, more analytical, deeper expertise in something. This ensures the talent bar constantly rises with each new generation of hires. It's how you build that self-replicating talent machine. Third, don't let managers make hiring decisions for their own teams. This one's radical. At Google, managers can't unilaterally hire someone. Why? Because managers are human. As a search drags on, their standards can slip. They might be biased toward a friend or feel pressure to fill the role quickly. Instead, hiring decisions go through a committee of peers and objective senior leaders. This ensures every hire meets the same high bar for quality, regardless of which team they're joining. The result of this rigorous, data-driven process? When someone gets hired at Google, they're trusted from day one. There's no probation period where you have to prove yourself. The organization has such confidence in the hiring process that new employees are immediately treated as full, valued members of the team. Now, once you've got these amazing people, how do you manage them? This is where Google's philosophy gets even more counterintuitive. The best way to manage great people? Take power away from managers. At Google, there's deep skepticism about traditional management. Many engineers see managers as bureaucratic layers that get in the way of actual work. The traditional manager controls your salary, your promotions, your workload. Enormous power, and power, as we know, tends to corrupt. To combat this, Google deliberately strips managers of their traditional power tools. As we've seen, they can't unilaterally hire. They also can't unilaterally fire someone, decide promotions, or determine pay increases. All these decisions go through committees of peers or independent groups. So what's left for managers to do? The only thing that really matters: serve the team. Their job isn't command and control. It's clearing roadblocks and inspiring people. This gets reinforced by eliminating visible hierarchy symbols. No executive dining rooms or reserved parking spots. The most senior executives get the same benefits as brand new hires. The goal is creating an environment where decisions get made based on data, not on who has the fanciest title. One of the most powerful tools for this is an annual employee survey called Google Geist, which means the spirit of Google. Nearly 90% of employees participate every year. It asks about 100 questions, covering everything from manager quality to career development and innovation. The results don't just get filed away in some HR cabinet, they're shared with the entire company. Every manager with more than a handful of reports gets a detailed summary of what their team thinks of them. And the reports on all vice presidents get published for everyone to see. This creates a powerful virtuous cycle. Employees give honest feedback, the company acts on it, which encourages even more participation next year. It's a mechanism that gives everyone voice and holds leaders accountable. This data-driven approach extends to understanding performance too. Like most companies, Google struggled with performance reviews. Nobody likes them. They eat up tons of time and often feel unfair. In traditional systems, you have one conversation at year's end, where your manager tells you how you did and what your raise will be. Laszlo argues this is a huge mistake because it combines two things that should be completely separate: performance evaluation and personal development. The moment money enters the conversation, employees stop listening to feedback. Their brain switches from learning mode to defense mode. Google's solution is simple but brilliant. Have the two conversations at different times. The development conversation, how you can grow and improve, should be constant, ongoing dialogue between manager and team member. The evaluation and rewards conversation happens separately, as a fair way to distribute limited resources like bonuses and promotions. To ensure fairness in evaluation, Google uses something called calibration. Groups of managers meet to review all their employees' performance ratings together. They discuss individuals and debate the ratings until reaching consensus. This removes single manager bias and ensures everyone gets held to the same performance standard across the company. But where Google really innovates is in how it thinks about performance distribution. Most companies assume performance follows a normal distribution, the classic bell curve, with a few poor performers, a few superstars, and most people clustered in the middle as average. Research shows this is wrong. In most jobs, human performance doesn't follow a bell curve. It follows a power law distribution. Think of it this way. In a group of 10 people, one person isn't just 10% better than average, they might be 10 times better. A tiny number of elite performers produce a massive chunk of the output. As Bill Gates famously said, a great software writer is worth 10,000 times the price of an average one. This leads to one of the book's most provocative rules: pay unfairly. If you pay everyone roughly the same, or within a narrow band, you're overpaying your worst performers and dramatically underpaying your best ones. And what do your best people do when they're underpaid? They leave. Paying unfairly means having wide pay variations that reflect huge variations in contribution. It means someone at a junior level could make far more than an average performer at a senior level. It's not about paying people equally, it's about paying them proportional to their impact. But here's the crucial twist. While you should reward exceptional performance with exceptional pay, you should never celebrate compensation. In its early days, Google created Founders Awards, giving multi-million-dollar stock awards to teams with extraordinary accomplishments. Sounded great in theory. Totally backfired. It made people less happy. Why? Because it focused everyone's attention on money. People who didn't win felt left out. People who won less than expected were disappointed. And even some big winners, after receiving life-changing sums, wanted to jump to new projects, hoping to win again. The program celebrated money, which bred jealousy and resentment. The lesson? Reward privately with cash, but celebrate publicly with experiences. People are far more motivated by and remember experiences, like a team trip or special dinner, much longer than they remember a cash bonus. The joy of money fades quickly, but memories last forever. This brings us to the final layer of Google's people philosophy, the power of small, subtle interventions. In their book Nudge, scholars Richard Thaler and Cass Sunstein showed how tiny environmental changes can have huge impacts on our choices. Google has become a living laboratory for applying these ideas to the workplace. They call it Optimize Your Life. For instance, in their micro kitchens, they didn't ban unhealthy snacks. They simply made them less visible. They put candy in opaque containers and moved healthy options, fruit and nuts, to eye level in clear glass jars. The result? In their New York office, this simple change led Googlers to consume 3.1 million fewer calories over 7 weeks, equivalent to avoiding nearly 900 pounds of weight gain. In cafes, they offered both large and small plates. After putting up small signs explaining that people using smaller plates eat less but feel just as satisfied, a third of Googlers switched to smaller plates, reducing both food consumption and waste. These nudges aren't about forcing people. They're about making good choices easier. Another powerful example is a simple email sent to managers the day before a new employee starts. It's a checklist of 5 basic actions, like having a role discussion and assigning a peer buddy. Seems almost ridiculously simple, right? But Nooglers, that's what new Googlers are called, whose managers got this email became fully productive 25% faster than their peers. That's a whole month of learning time saved, all from one well-timed email. These aren't mandates. They're gentle nudges making the right behaviors the easiest behaviors. Of course, it's not all sunshine and roses. Laszlo is honest about Google's mistakes along the way. The commitment to transparency means sometimes there are massive, company-wide email debates about seemingly trivial things, like the name of a pie. One day, a cafe offered a, quote, free Tibet goji chocolate creme pie. It sparked a firestorm, with over 1,000 emails from Googlers offended by the political statement and others defending it as free speech. The debate resolved nothing, but it proved the culture of transparency and voice was alive, even when messy and uncomfortable. Building a high-freedom workplace is a constant balancing act. It requires willingness to experiment, to listen, to admit when you're wrong, and to always hold true to the core belief that people are fundamentally good. Ultimately, Work Rules is a book about choice. You can build an organization based on control, rules, and hierarchy. Or you can build one based on freedom, trust, and purpose. The freedom path is harder. It requires more courage. It'll be messier. But Laszlo makes a powerful case that it's the only path that will attract and keep the most talented people on the planet, and the only one that will make work a source of meaning and joy, not just a paycheck. When you finish a book like Work Rules, it's easy to feel this mix of inspiration and skepticism. You might think, well, sure, that's great for Google. They have unlimited resources. They can afford all this fancy stuff. But I think that completely misses the point. The most powerful lesson in this book is that building an incredible workplace has almost nothing to do with money. In fact, most programs with the biggest impact at Google are free. A program letting employees give each other small cash bonuses? It runs on trust, not budget. A checklist emailed to managers to help new hires get up to speed? Costs nothing but a little thought. Creating a culture where people can question the CEO? That takes courage, not capital. The real perks at Google aren't free lunches or massage chairs. The real perk is being trusted. It's the freedom to shape your work, to have voice, to be treated like an owner. And that, as Laszlo says, is free. The book powerfully reminds us that how we work today isn't how we have to work. For over a century, our management model has been based on industrial-age ideas, a world of control, predictability, and efficiency, where people were seen as machine parts. But we don't live in that world anymore. We live in a world demanding creativity, adaptability, and passion. And you can't command someone to be passionate. You can't order creativity. You can only create conditions where those qualities can emerge. That's what this book is truly about. It's a guide to creating those conditions. And the principles are universal. Doesn't matter if you're running a tech startup, a local coffee shop, a nonprofit, or just a small team project at school. You can start tomorrow by making a few simple changes. First, give your work meaning. Whatever you do, connect it to the people it helps. Make that connection visible. Second, trust your people by default. Share more information than feels comfortable. Give them a little more freedom than you think they can handle. And third, focus on the two tails. Find your absolute best people and put them under a microscope. Figure out what makes them successful, then turn them into teachers. And find people who are struggling most, and approach them with compassion and genuine desire to help them improve or find a role where they can shine. The journey described in Work Rules isn't easy. It's messy, filled with debate, and requires constant willingness to question your assumptions. But it offers a hopeful, inspiring vision for the future of work, a future where workplaces aren't just productivity engines, but sources of community, creativity, and human flourishing. That was a summary of Work Rules by Laszlo Bock. We've touched on the core ideas today, but I'll be honest, a summary is just a map. The real journey happens when you explore the territory yourself. The true magic of a book like this is in the details, the specific studies, personal stories, those moments of insight that hit when you least expect them. This summary is here to help you decide if this book deserves your time and attention. If any ideas we've discussed today have sparked something in you, if they've made you rethink what's possible in a workplace, then I encourage you to grab a copy. Reading it isn't just about learning new management techniques. It's an experience that can genuinely change how you think about your career and your role in shaping the world around you. You can find a link to the book in the description below. Also, if you found this summary valuable and it gave you something to think about, please take a moment to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. That way, you won't miss our next journey into another life-changing book. Let's keep learning and growing together.